We now, in our worship service, are continuing a sermon series called Worth It. Being able to answer the question at the end of the day, everything we did with our money, the stuff we did with our time, the things we did with our capacities, our talents, our resources, will it have been worth it? Will it have been worth it? And today we're looking at money. And we're looking at a parable that's one of my very favorite parables because it's such a weird parable. I mean, I like the obvious parables, they're kind of cool, but I really like the weird parables. And this one's an odd one. So would you please stand? I'm going to be reading out of Luke chapter 16. Some of your Bibles might call this the parable of the unjust manager, or the rotten manager. Some might call it the parable of the wise steward, and you'll see why your Bibles play around with the titles on this. So this is what Jesus says. Jesus told his disciples, "There was a rich man whose manager was accused of squandering his possessions. So he called him in and asked him, 'What is this I hear about you? Give me an account of your management, because you cannot be manager any longer.' Well, the manager said to himself, 'What shall I do now? My master is taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses.' So he called in each of his master's debtors. He asked the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' 900 gallons of olive oil,' he replied. The manager told him, 'Take your bill, sit down quickly, make it 450. Then he asked the second, 'And how much do you owe?' 1,000 bushels of wheat. He told him, 'Take your bill, make it 800. The master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the people of this world, of this age, are more shrewd, wise in dealing with their own kind than are the people of the light. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourself, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Whoever can be trusted with very little can be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? But if you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money." Well, the Pharisees, who loved money, heard all this and were sneering at Jesus. The gospel of Christ. All praise to you, O Christ. The grass withers and the flowers fade, but the word of the Lord endures forever. Amen. Go ahead and be seated. What is worth it? Hey, did anybody else, by the way, and I'm going to tell you after you answer me how many people had seen this online or on their own social media news feeds this week. Did anybody else get the clickbait about Kim Kardashian's birthday party and who was at it this week? Did anybody else get that? What is wrong with me? Why do I always get these things, right? Apparently, unless there was a birthday party and this whole story, I'm like looking for stories on Gaza and things like this, which I do read, okay? I do keep up on the news. But I love these other things too. This is why they keep showing up. Birthday party, and they're like, oh, guess who is at the birthday party? And apparently, she had both Ivanka Trump and Lauren Sanchez there. You know who these women are, right? Ivanka Trump is the eldest daughter of one of our most powerful politicians right now, and Lauren Sanchez, do I have her name right, is the fiance of what someone after the first service let me know is the third richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos. And the interesting thing, what this article was interested in, was not that they were there. Because the article's like, yeah, I know, I read it, I'm sorry. The article's like, they're friends, who knew? They were interested in the seating arrangements. They're like, guess who was next to Kim at her party, right? So guess, who do you think? Ivanka. Yeah, it was totally, you saw it, admit it. Oh, okay. It was Ivanka. It was Ivanka. Apparently, good old Lauren, who's still being the social climber that she is, according to the article, was a few seats away. I'm like, wow, who's interested in this besides me? Why are we even looking at this. How many of you saw in the Seattle Times articles this week about wealth in the Seattle area? Apparently in the Seattle area, we have 54,200 millionaires. Someone counted them. 130 centimillionaires. Has anybody heard of those before? This is a new term to me. And 11 billionaires. We have the 7th most millionaires in the nation in the Seattle area. If you feel like things have gotten more expensive, you are more immersed in a wealth culture in Seattle than you used to be, you are. If you walk around University Village and you pass 100 people, 7 or 8 of the people you pass are most likely millionaires. We are, and this is illustrated according to Danny Westneed in his recent column about the $15 Lexus lanes. Did anybody see that? Okay, thank you. So I can't believe you're not keeping up with the Kardashians. The Lexus lanes are like the express toll lanes, right? And so if you're willing to pay to play, you can skip the line and get in there and pay your money. And there's certain days where the charge on them have been as high as $15 to go and take that lane. They're set by how many people are doing it. Guess how much time, or those of you who read the article, you don't have to guess, I'm just testing your general knowledge. Guess how much time that $15 saved you this past week in that lane? 3 minutes. Sonny got it. 3 minutes. And Danny Westneed is like, what world am I living in? That there are people who will spend $15. One person pointed out, you know what world you're living in? With this much wealth in this area, you could take the lid off of that price, and there would still people who pay it no matter what. Because they want to get there. They want to be unimpeded. They're alone in their car, and they're ready to go. Now, you may not be in this category, but you are immersed in this culture. You may not be in this category, but you are immersed in this culture. This is a culture that the Bible refers to as a mammon culture. There's a phrase from the Aramaic, mammon. It's a phrase that isn't simply referring to money, even though that's how it is translated in many of our English translations. It's a word that's used 4 different times in the Bible in the New Testament, 3 times in this chapter. Once, in a repeat of one of these phrases, you cannot serve both God and mammon. And that's in Matthew and Luke. What mammon is it's not just money. It's not just being rich. The origin of this term, of this idea in the Aramaic, is it's a full reliance on wealth. And wealth being not just money, but your property, whatever it is that allows you to be solo in the express lane, whatever it is that allows you to take care of your comfort all by yourself, whatever it is that allows you to not have to answer to anyone, whatever it is that gets you the seat of honor at the party, that's mammon. And worldly wealth, which is what our passage translated it as, it's actually dishonest is the Greek term. The term dishonest mammon is talking about the lengths that someone will go to protect and promote their own wealth for their own purposes. This is what Jesus is dealing with in these stories. This is what we're immersed in. So our question this morning is, how do we seek the kingdom of God, live out seeking the kingdom of God with our money, spending our money in a way that's worth it, when we are immersed in a mammon culture? How do people immersed in a mammon culture learn to seek first the kingdom of God, to live in a way that's going to be worth it? And Jesus tells us a story to help us. In this story of the unjust manager, which is what I prefer to call it, or the wise steward, if you want to put a nicer spin on it, there's a few things that happen that are important to notice. Okay? Here's the first thing to notice. This guy is a steward. He's not the owner. He's in trouble because he treated everything as if he was the owner. He squandered it. That term for squandered, the story just before this one in Luke's gospel is the story of the prodigal son. The prodigal son, younger son, looked at his dad. He said, "Give me my half of the inheritance." He took all that wealth, and what did he do with it in the far country? Squandered it, right? So in both these stories, somebody's squandering money. The younger son squandered his own money that the father had given him. In this story, this dishonest manager is squandering the money of this rich man. So he's squandering the money, and he's gotten caught. He's a steward. He's not the owner. And then, because of the way he deals with it, he's commended at the end of the story for being wise. Now, that feels very surprising for us, right? I honestly don't think this was such a surprising ending to those who were listening to it. Here's why. For those who were living at the time, they didn't have all the consumer protections that we do, right? You may not feel very protected, but welcome to the first century. In the first century, where Jesus' time, there was these massive usury practices that the rich used. So you noticed that when the steward brought Felix in and said, "Dude, how much do you owe?" And Felix says, "Well, I owe 1,000, 900 things of oil," right? He says, cut it down by 50%. You can count on the fact that oil, the interest on that oil was 100%. That Felix borrowed 450 or whatever against 450 liters, and the interest is 100%. So what that manager does is cut off the interest, right? And then Caitlin comes in, and Caitlin's like, I got, how many bushels? Let's look this up. How many bushels did she have? 1,000. What do you cut it down to? 800. There's a 20%, right? Cuts it down by 20%. Wheat isn't as steady, isn't as stable as oil, so you're not going to put as higher rates on it. So this is why I think the best reading of this parable is that what this manager was doing was saying, okay, let's get rid of the interest. I'm going to go out and get rid of the interest. And why did he do it? What was his concern? Right? Do you remember? Yeah, make friends. I need these people to hire me. I'm going to need to find work. I am too old to dig ditches. I am too proud to beg. I'm going to need people to still take me, so I need to make friends. And at the end of the day, and I can imagine this scene, this rich man sits there and he looks at him and he goes, "Oh, you are shrewd. I don't think he had his hand on his hip. Let's pretend he didn't have his hand on his hip, okay? Let's pretend he was at the big desk. You are shrewd." Because here's why. If you're the rich guy, and this guy just went out to all of these people and made you the hero, because you've gotten rid of their interest, right? We're talking 1 to 10 years worth of wages that just got wiped off. They are loving the rich man at this point, right? So it's not like you're going to go back to these people and say, actually, I'm going to put all that interest back on. The rich man can afford it. The rich man can afford it. If he couldn't, I think he would have put the manager in debtor's prison, right? He doesn't just have to fire him. The manager has squandered his money. He can throw him in debtor's prison until he works his way out. It happens in other stories that Jesus tells. The rich man can afford it. So here's what just happened. The rich man's the hero. All of these people love him. The dishonest steward has acted dishonestly all the way through. This is what he does, but he's come out ahead, right? And no one's the wiser. Everybody's happy, right? This is very shrewd. So the rich man doesn't reward the manager for dishonest behavior. He fires him. But he does recognize the shrewdness of this manager. And so what we want to unpack is, what is shrewd here? What's wise here? Because the reality of Jesus is, you're not going to not be living in the land of mammon. You are. I mean, I guess you could sell everything and move out to the desert, okay? And if you're going to do that, if that's your life plan, go ahead and go have a donut. We'll come back to this later. If that's not your life plan, if you're going to keep living in this context and environment that we live in right now in a wealthy nation, and especially a very wealthy area, we need to learn some shrewdness lessons, some wisdom lessons from this guy. And I think there's three things. I think there's three things at least that Jesus pulls out. Here's one of them. The first thing I think that is important to recognize is that, as I said, the manager is a steward, not the owner. Here's the rules of mammon. The rule of mammon is this: get to the point where you don't have to answer to anyone. Get to the point where you have enough money and enough wealth that you don't have to answer to anyone. You are your own boss. No one is your boss. You manage others. They don't manage you. But in this story, Jesus does a reality check. No matter what, no matter how rich you are a steward. And one day you will be called to account. And in story after story that Jesus tells, each one of us is reminded that we are stewards of all the material possession that God gives to us. And Jesus reminds us how good this God is. Aren't you more important than the flowers of the field? Aren't you more important than the birds of the air? Do you remember your inestimable wealth, worth to God? You know how much your God, your Father, loves to provide for you, loves to give to you, loves to work with you. You are a steward. So this is the first thing to remember. And the rules in the land of Mammon say, get it to the point where no one owns you. Jesus says, you're owned no matter what. You're either going to serve wealth, the desire for wealth, security and wealth, identity and wealth, or you're going to serve God. And he says this in one of the parables, in one of the Proverbs, he says at the end. You heard him say it. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and mammon. And this is the word mammon, not money. You can't put all your best energy and service and work into finding your security, your identity, your independence through wealth, and put your best of who you are into finding your security, your identity, and your interdependence from God. You just can't do both, he says. You're going to have to choose. You're going to have to choose. Choose the one who loves you. Here's why. This is the second point, the second thing we learn from the unfaithful manager. The second thing that we learn is how important it is to recognize the urgency of your situation. To recognize the urgency of your situation. This is what the steward does right. He's like, oh, I'm going to have to act and act fast because I'm about to be called to account. And he acts in terms of the future. There's a certain future that is certain, and the future is that he's going to be fired, and so he's acting in ways that secure the future. That's what he's doing. If you look at Jesus' stories that he tells about money over and over and over again, the fool in each one of those stories is the one who uses their money to secure their comfort now, to secure their identity now, to secure their place in the world now. The rich fool who ends up with this huge crop, and he says, whoa, this is awesome. What should I do with this? I know what I'll do. I'll build an extra barn, and I'll store all my things, and I'll say to myself, self, because his life is found in the comfort in all these things, self, eat, drink, and be merry, and take it easy. Live for your comfort now. And in the story, God says to the rich fool, you fool, I'm going to demand your life of you right now. And when you die, who gets your wealth then? Remember that line. Who gets your wealth then? We're coming back to it. But the rule of mammon is build it up, work it, own it, have power through it so that you can be comfortable now. That's the rule of mammon. Answer to no one and secure your own comfort. Those are the two big rules of mammon. Comfort in this life. Whereas what Jesus calls us to is to say, hey, everything you do, all your hustle, all your work, do it for treasures in heaven. Because what Jesus says is where your treasures are, there your heart shall be. When Jesus defines this parable, Jesus' definition of this parable is, hey, use your money to make friends. We're coming to that. Use your money to go towards the future. Invest in the future with what you are doing. It's not what you own when it comes to Jesus. It's what owns you. And so if we're answering to God, and we're investing in the future and going into the future, then the third thing we're doing, and the third thing that comes out of this story, is the call to use our money, and what money is for in this life when it comes to the future is people. It's making friends. Did you see this, what Jesus said in verse... I don't know what verse it is, but this is what he said. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourself, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. People are what go into eternity. It's people that go into eternity. So over and over and over again, Jesus gives a picture of using wealth, using status, using possessions to build bridges and relationships with people. Because it's people who go into the future. It's interesting because it could be that one way to, no, this is what's interesting. Back up, Lori. Here's what's interesting. In the previous story, remember the younger brother who squandered all his stuff, right? Then remember the older brother who didn't want to come in? I'm not coming into this party. That guy's an idiot. Give me a break. His dad goes, the idiot's worth it. He's your brother. He's worth it. He's worth it. You still got your money. You still got me. I didn't take your inheritance, but he is worth it. He's worth it. So in the kingdom of mammon, the rules of mammon, right, is that even if friendships are worth it, they're probably, did you see that? I almost tipped over. Even if friendships are worth it, they're kind of worth it for status, right? It's the Kardashian dinner party and who's sitting where, right? They're worth it for status. They're worth what they're transactional. They're worth it for what they can give or get to you. I was thinking about one way that, an illustration, I was trying to think, okay, how do we illustrate if there's kingdom people who believe that we're all going to answer to God, who believe we want to invest in eternity, not just this life, other people's comfort, not just our comfort, and we're doing this in our friendships. What should be the pattern of people? And I was thinking about all these 20 and 30-year-olds I know. I was talking to a nephew this week, and he's going to a wedding in Italy for some friends, right? He's like, I don't know if I should take a gift, because apparently we're not only paying to get to Italy to go to this wedding, but we're paying for the hotel we're staying in, because a certain number of guests paying for the hotel means the bride and groom don't have to pay for the venue. So he's like, do I have to take them a gift? Because I'm pretty much paying for their wedding, even though I invited. And that got me thinking about, seriously, how many people I talked to. When I was in my 20s and my friends were getting married, I spent $15 at most on a baking sheet for the bridal shower. Who's with me on this, right? $15 for the baking sheet or the muffin tins or whatever for the bridal shower. And then a few of us would go in on a $50 or $75 gift, and we went to the wedding, and it was great fun, right? Now, when I talk to people who are going to weddings, oh my land, you're just in for it, right? I mean, it's hundreds of dollars to go to wherever the hen party is. Do we call them that? What do we call them that in this country? Bachelorette. Sorry, I'm all of a sudden UK. To go to the bachelorette party, right, is what it is. And then you're spending all this money to go to the destination and spending all this money to go there. And I think about how awkward it is. I just think about how awkward it is. I think about talking to some of my friends who they're like, okay, I got a friend who invited me for a birthday party to this super expensive restaurant. I don't know who's paying. I don't know if I'm supposed to pay when I go or if they're going to pay. And even if I go and I'm not paying and I don't order anything because I'm on a budget this month, I know my friends. They order a lot and they drink a lot. And at the end of the night, they're going to say, let's split this up evenly. And they're like, there's no place for me at that table. You know what I'm talking about, right? This is how it works. So for the people of the kingdom to think in terms of what's it going to take to keep everyone at the table? What if it's more important that everyone's at the celebration and no one's left out? What if it's more important that everyone's at the table? And if you've got the cash, honestly, now I'm just getting a little bossy, but let me just tell you this. If you've got the cash to invite everybody out to a nice place for dinner, go ahead and pay for it. It's worth it. They're your friends. Build bridges with your friends. It's awesome. Make sure everybody's there without shame. If a friend insists on wanting to pay for it, bring a little QR code for Union Gospel Mission and tell them, drop it in there, give it to them, right? This is what we do. This is what Jesus did. Find a way for everyone to be at the table. Find a way for everyone to be at the table financially without shame. That's what generosity looks like. Get everybody at the table. And not only that, Jesus, in all of his teaching, takes it one step further, because he doesn't even do the Kardashian thing, right? Because it could sound like you're like, okay, well then I use my money to make friends, which means Ivanka and Lauren are coming to my birthday party, right? That's what it could sound like, until you look at the next parable. Look on your devices or look in the Bible. What's the next parable in Luke 16? Tell me. The rich man and Lazarus. It's the only parable where someone has a name. There's a man named Lazarus. He's poor. Lives at the gate. A very rich man. This very rich man doesn't pay any attention to Lazarus. Has his parties, has his comforts, driving solo in the Lexus lane, right? And he dies. And in the parable, he goes down to hell, and Lazarus is taken to his comfort. Because the rich man had all his comfort in this life, Lazarus had none. You know why I think Jesus names Lazarus in this parable? Because if you look a few lines in, when this rich man is very uncomfortable and he wants someone to help him, he sees Lazarus. And he not only sees Lazarus, he knows his name. He knows his name. Ask Lazarus to get me something to drink. The people that Jesus says you especially want to make friends with this money you've got, is Lazarus at the gate. It's the poor. Because everybody living immersed in a mammon culture, befriending the poor will teach you where you are impoverished, where you are immersed in this culture, what you are missing. Befriending those who can't pay their own way to be at the table is going to teach you about the generosity of God and your own poverty of spirit. We do Bless Big Global and Bless Big Local around here with an emphasis on the poor for a very specific reason. Because when we pay attention to things like a war in Ukraine, like a war in Gaza, like slavery, like generational poverty, like drought, like the Jubilee Center is dealing with in Zambia right now, like injustice, it reminds all of us, whoa, we're pretty lucky that our city isn't at war. We're just pretty lucky that we weren't born into generational poverty. We're just pretty lucky that we weren't born into these situations of injustice. We're pretty lucky, those of us who have that disposable income to spend. It reminds us that where the rule of the mammon kingdom is, you need me. You need my money and you need my friendship. The rule of the kingdom of God is, I need you. I need you. I need friendship with you. That's what this is for. I remember being a missionary, and we're going to get to hear from Cooper in the congregational gathering. I hope you'll come to the congregational gathering even if you're not a member. You don't have to be a member to come to the gathering. Okay? You will not have the pleasure of voting for elders and deacons, and that's worth being a member. But come to it anyway so you can hear from Cooper. But I was a missionary in Scotland. And as a missionary in Scotland, and we've got people like Cooper's worked as a missionary, we've got Tallulah up there, we've got the Snedeckers. When you're working as missionaries, it's very humbling because you're always asking people for money, and then a car goes out and you got to ask them again. And I remember being without a car one more time in Scotland and being so annoyed and just going, I'm so tired of this. I just want the kind of job where I can buy my own car and not have to depend on anybody. I just want to pay my $15 and get in the Lexus lane. Right? That's where we want to live. And the gift and the grace of the story like this, of the dishonest / wise steward, is to remind us that we're never meant to be driving alone in the Lexus lane. Because I learned more, and have always learned more, from being interdependent with others than I ever have being able to be independent with my own money. The more we can put ourselves in a position of living into the reality that we are dependent on God, we're working towards an eternal treasure, and that the only people who are going to enjoy that eternal treasure with us are other people, not any of our stuff, the more freedom that we have in this life. Let's pray.